The Minnesota Timberwolves defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder 112 to 107. This is the Thunder's second loss in 3 games. So they're going through a minor slump right now, I would say, because they still have a great record of 25-3. But it's been interesting in the sense that prior to the stretch, OKC looked like they were going to win like 80 some games or 77, just some crazy torrid pace, which probably is not going to happen now since they've already gotten 2 losses. But still, they could get 70 some wins, 70 to 73. Wouldn't surprise me. However, a wrench has been thrown in these last 3 games or so. So they might be slowed down a little bit, but this could just be a minor bump in the road if we're looking at things, and they could easily win 10, 12 in a row in these next 10 or 12 games. It wouldn't surprise me because they're just that good. But going to this game, I found it very entertaining. Like, this was a good game from the beginning, that the Wolves finally had Anthony Edwards back in the lineup, which makes them a very exciting team. And it made this game very competitive. This is what we want to see. We want to see the best players compete against each other. SGA is the MVP of the league, and Anthony Edwards has been hyped up to be like the next big thing, at least when it comes to American prospect. He's probably the best player right now, at least when it comes to that category. He's been hyped up as the next face of the league type of guy. So I think these types of games are measuring sticks. It was him versus the reigning MVP and SGA, and I felt that matchup didn't disappoint. They both played really good games, so that was awesome. But I thought what really set the tone early in the game was the Timberwolves coach getting ejected out of the game. I forget his name, Chris Finch. I don't know why, but yes. So it happened early in the game. Chris Finch got ejected with like 6 minutes, 19 seconds left. Reason he got ejected was because Julius Randle got hacked on the previous play. It was an obvious foul, and the rest didn't call it. So Finch lost his cool. He yelled, cursed, got thrown out of the game. He was upset about the Thunder getting away with hacking players, which I do believe he has a right to be upset about, because the Thunder, they get away with a lot of hacking. They're a good defensive team, but those guys hack like crazy, and it's really up to the refs to dictate how they're allowed to play defense, because some games they're just hacking left and right, forcing a ton of turnovers, but the refs call it fairly. They'll get a lot of fouls called against them, and I think Finch, by getting ejected, forced the refs to call the game more tightly, and hence why they got called for more fouls in this game. That it led to the Timberwolves shooting about 47 free throws, while the Thunder only shot 30. And to be fair, I thought when they were on the line, the Timberwolves that many times, it was legit because OKC was hacking a lot. They were just getting called for it now. So I don't think it was unfair that they had that free throw discrepancy, because OKC is the reason why they shot so many due to their hacking. But I think that's one thing to keep in consideration, that if the refs call the games fairly and they call OKC for his hacking, it does make a huge difference. Granted, even though they were getting called for the hacks, their defense was still pretty good. Minnesota shot only 38% for the game, while OKC didn't shoot better. They shot 37%. So it was kind of like a muddy game, at least the closest thing we're going to get to a defensive slugfest in this era, due to these rules that make it very hard to play defense. One thing I would say about the Timberwolves, that they were able to frustrate SGA to some degree. Granted, he still had a good game, 35 points on 46% shooting. But keep in mind, SGA is normally shooting 55% overall from the field for the season. So they're able to limit his efficiency by 9%. That makes a huge difference on a game that's one in the margins. A 9% drop off is like 4 to 6 points that were taken away from SGA that he could easily had. And that makes a big difference in a game like this, especially when the margin of victory is only 5 points. So I think that was huge, how they were able to make him a little bit less efficient. And they did that by taking away his mid-range shot. A lot of times they were able to get him to be forced to not be able to take that shot. I think they took a page out of the Spurs book by having Gobert rotate a lot of times in the paint mid-range area to take away that mid-range, do the switching. Same with Nas Reed. He was really good at switching also on that. So they kind of limited how many mid-range shots he could take. Granted, he was still effective. He still got his 30, but he wasn't as dominant as he normally was with like insane efficiency. So I thought that was a great strategy, something for other teams to do, but I don't think many teams can do it. You had to have a combination of just length, which the Timberwolves have, and having Gobert and Nasri. Both are very mobile big men that can switch very well. I think that helps tremendously. And then on the perimeter, you have scrappy guys who can move fast like Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels. That makes a world of difference, I feel, in being able to pull off those types of schemes. You need to have that to have a chance against the Thunder. I think that's like the recipe. Athletic big men that can rotate combined with athletic perimeter players that can switch also fast and play the passing lanes and force turnovers and whatnot. Granted, even with Minnesota's scrappy defense, OKC only turned the ball over 11 times, which is still pretty impressive because that's very low when you consider turnovers. But Minnesota also handled the ball very well in this game. They had only 13. So if you can also limit your turnovers against OKC, you have a chance of winning, because OKC wins a lot of their games by forcing a ton of turnovers, which leads to easy offensive buckets for them. So I think that's another recipe in playing OKC. Limit your turnovers. And the Timberwolves did that in this game. They were also able to contain, like Shaq would say, the others. Jalen Williams didn't have a good game. He shot 6 of 16. Lou Dort was crap. 3 of 12 from the field. Granted, he's not an offensive player, but still, that's really putrid shooting. Hardenstein was awful. Just 0 of 2. Just a no-show. Chet Holmgren was Chet Holmgren, as I call him. I'm not going to say he had a really bad game, but 4 of 9, which is still good. Nah, that's actually a little bit below 50%, but he really didn't seem really that effective in this game. He had 14 points, but they didn't seem like a impactful 14 from what I was watching in this game. And the plus and minus stat shows that he was at -8. So there you go on that one. And the only guy that really played well for OKC off their bench was Mitchell. He had like 14 points, so he had a good game. But overall, the team was contained. SGA less efficient than he normally is, and the others were just really bad. So you got to credit Minnesota's scrappy defense for being able to do that. Now, on Minnesota's end, they didn't shoot well at all, really, as a team. If you look at them, Julius Randle, as my friend would call him, Julius Random, shot 3 of 15 from the field. Terrible shooting, but I think the difference with Julius in this game was he was able to force a lot of free throws by playing aggressive, and the Thunder couldn't really defend him, which led to him shooting 16 free throws, making 12 of them, which was huge. They needed all the free throws they could get, and those are legit free throws he was getting. They were not touch fouls. OKC was hacking the shit out of him, so it was legit. He was able to force them to give him a lot of free throws. That was big, and Anthony Edwards, I would say, had a good game. Not a great game shooting-wise. Good game, 9 of 20, which is 45% shooting. 26 points overall, 3 of 6 from 3, 50%. But the other guy who had a good offensive game for the Wolves, I would say, was Nas Reed. He was huge off the bench with his 15, 5 of 10 from the field. Defensively, he was great, 3 steals, 2 blocks. Bones Highland was also very underrated off the bench. 13 points, 4 of 7 shooting, 4 of 6 from the 3. I've always liked Bones Highland since he played for the Nuggets. To me, he's a very good role player. I think if he gets good minutes, he can produce. And his first few years in the league, he was averaging like 10 or 11, and then he dropped off once he joined the Clippers. But I think he could be a really good 6th man for the Timberwolves if he's used right, him and Nas Reed, because they definitely need some bench production. And on a side note, when I look at Rob Dillingham, he's such a weird player because he's super quick, he's super fast, but this guy has like no jump shot. He's not good at finishing at the rim, but he has speed. It's just like the weirdest thing ever. It's just he's a very fast, quick player, and if he could ever just learn how to shoot properly and finish, he could be a very effective player for the Wolves one day. I don't know if he'll ever be able to fix his shooting and his finishing, but yeah, if he can do that, he can definitely have a huge impact on the game. He's very fast, so he can push the ball up the court. And you see that even with the plus and minus stat that he had 0 points, 0 for 4 shooting, but 6 rebounds, 3 assists. And his plus minus was like plus 10. So just a very weird player, a guy I'm going to keep paying attention to whenever the Wolves play. So I just point that out. But the story of the game really was Anthony Edwards at the end. Like, I remember during the final 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, he wasn't really doing anything for most of those 5 minutes. And I was like, where's Anthony Edwards? This guy's hyped up to be the next face of the league. He has the nickname Michael Jordan's son, but he's not showing up. He's doing absolutely nothing in the stretch, and SGA is hitting timely shots. Like, when is this going to come? And he did eventually show up when it mattered. In the final 38 seconds of the game, he was huge. There was a play with 38 seconds left in the game in which he hit a big three-pointer, which put the Wolves up by 1 point. They were down by 107 to 105, and he hits a big three that gets them the lead. And then coming out of the timeout, the Thunder give the ball to SGA. He drives to the hole, and Anthony Edwards swats him. That, to me, was the game-winning defensive play of the game, because after he blocked him, OKC still got the rebound, but they just couldn't score. They panicked. They rushed a bad shot. Jalen Williams missed a three-pointer. They get the rebound. Anthony Edwards actually gets the rebound, passes it to Julius Randle. He gets fouled, makes both free throws, and the game is pretty much over. But what's interesting at the end, it comes down to another final possession with the Wolves up by 3, and SGA gets the ball, and Anthony Edwards forces a turnover. He steals the ball from SGA. So this game in the final 38 seconds was won by Anthony Edwards, getting the go-ahead three-point shot, blocking SGA, which led 2 points for the Wolves, and then making sure SGA couldn't tie the game by stealing the ball from him. He won them the game. That's what great players are supposed to do. He didn't do nothing for nearly the whole entire final 5 minutes, but he showed up when it matters. That's a sign of being a great player. So you got to give Anthony Edwards kudos for that and respect for that, for coming through. I would say this was definitely a very exciting game. Definitely what NBA fans want. So hopefully we get more of these competitive games with the Thunder and other top teams in the West and the East.